Hey again, guys. It's time again for Grakloros Facts. Today we'll be talking about elves. So, first off, elves inhabit the forest regions of the world. We'll start off in the west. The High Elves of the Sprawling Forest. This is split up into two sections. The Virtegarn Forest to the south, and the Foravar Forest to the north. The Virtegarn elves are very friendly. They're very common in the human world. They're open traders. They they're your stereotypical elves. Armand would be a Foravar elf, especially since it's right next to the Isle de Gaul. However, the Foravar elves are a little more haughty, a little more elitist. They believe they're superior to all the elves, including other high elves. The High King is from Foravar, and they see themselves as the top tier of elvenhood. So the high elves are typical elves. They're 5 foot, 5'6" ish, fair complexion, light hair, uh, sometimes golden blonde, black sometimes, even copper, light eyes that are usually very colorful. These are the crafters of mithril arms and armor. So the Virtegarn elves make houses of wood among streams and ancient growth forests. Important buildings they have are made out of like marble and granite, like their temples. They're not so much one with the forest as much as they see themselves as protectors and manipulators of the forest. The Foravar elves, however, make they make stone and wooden homes. The citadels be also marble, but also other beautiful stones. They're flashy and a bit gaudy. Lots of gold and metal works factored into their architecture. They see themselves as masters of the forest and sovereigns of the elves. They live in the mountain valleys deep in the forest. The king of the Virtegarn elves is King Thoramir Alonadel, and the capital city is Daera, which is about in here. And then, as in Foravar, the High King is Esper Galantri, and the capital is Arionosel. Now we'll talk about the High Elves of Windswept Wood. They're the same as other High Elves, but with a combination of the Virtegarn and Foravar Elves. Their houses are wood and stone among the river valleys and streams of the forest. Outer villages that are closer to the dark marshes and Ruscland are walled with palisades to protect them from the frequent orc raids. The capital is Kethavin Se, and the king is Alandmar Gillian. Next, we'll talk about the Wood Elves of the Selurian Forest. They live in treetop villages. They're reclusive and distrusting, kind of xenophobic of non-elves, and until proven otherwise, you have to earn their trust. They have like copper and brown skin, brown, black hair, sometimes copper or blonde, green, brown, hazel eyes. They're crafters of leaf weave armor and the famous Elven light blade, the Elven thin blade, the Elven court blade, and the Elven craft longbow, which functions as a quarterstaff in close quarters. There are many warriors and druids. They see themselves as guardians and at one with the forest. The capital is Nairod. We've all been there. The king is Bellador Aliathanas. And the other major city is a city called Selsel Ahar. Now we'll talk about the Wild Elves of the Golden Plains. Now, they they have like ruddy brown, like reddish skin. And then there's the Wild Elves of the Azure Wood. They have more like dark hair, sometimes white or gray. They have tattoos. Both have bright eyes, like blue, green, purples, and yellows. They're both the elves of the Azure Forest have these primitive but beautiful glass mithril weapons. They usually wear hide or leather armor. They're elusive, secretive, tribal. They live in huts. The um, the elves of the plains live in tents and they're semi-nomadic. Both groups are hunter-gatherers. They don't really have a capital. They live in family groups and are controlled by tribal elders. Next, we'll talk about the Mithral Elves of the Mithral Forest. These are the Gray Elves. They're crafters of exquisite mithril items. They live deep in the forested hills and build homes into the bases of these giant trees called Erosai trees, and which can fit comfortably a family of 4 just right into the trunk of the tree. Like the Foravar elves, but also they're haughty, stuck-up, reclusive, elitist, condescending, xenophobic, kind of racist, and generally don't um, get along with anyone other than their forest gnome neighbors. They're highly intelligent, they're gifted mages and craftsmen and sages and philosophers. However, they're physically weaker than other elves, though they're taller. They have like bluish gray skin, sometimes pale or alabaster like. Their hair is silver to white, or black or blue, or various shades of blonde, brown, and red hair that aren't uncommon. Their eyes are blue and green, flecked with gold. The capital is Onulvan, and the High King is Erethavel Korzarul. Then next we have the aquatic elves of the Aquaramian Islands. These are nautical experts, talented swimmers, and accomplished sailors. They're traders and adventurers of the seas, sometimes even pirates. They can breathe both in and out of water. They have a greenish blue complexion, sometimes pale blue or pale green. They have dark eyes, black, red, white hair, and commonly they're bald. They have gills on their neck and webbed hands and feet and fin-like long ears. They usually prefer loose clothing and they craft coral armor that they grow in around their island chain. They're friendly but cautious. They're secretive and generally other races keep them at arm's length. They deal with them, but they try not to get too close. The capital is called Sumvin, and the king is Therthro Shorlian. Next, let's talk about the vastness below, which is what the people of Grakloros call the Underdark. This is where the drow are from. Typical drow, white, silver hair, dark gray skin, crafters of spider silk clothing and different poisons. In this world, they're stereotyped as evil, but most are neutral, living in an evil matriarchy of Loth's followers. There's a movement called Vandria's Underground, which is a lawful neutral aligned followers of Loth's daughter with Corellin. Vandria is known as the Angel of the Battlefield and the Lady of Grief, who the Vandria's Underground fight for the common good and seek an end to war, infighting, and bloodshed so common among drow houses. The largest drow city in the vastness below is Aralai Sinlu. There are 3 main contenders when talking about who controls the drow. The High Priestess of Loth is looked toward as the epitome, the connection to Loth. And what she says goes. However, she's more of a moral guidance than a leader, though oftentimes the high priestess will make her her alliances known and who she thinks should be in charge. The current matron mother is Sabrvin Merkleshal. The matron mother before her was Kurgan Thok, who was one of the generals under Kadak Khan. Now that Khan has fallen and so has Kurgan Thok, the Drow no longer have an alliance with the orcs. They don't seem to get along with any of the now fractured orc empire. So the Drows have taken it among themselves to do what they've always done best. The opposition to the Matron Mother and the High Priestess of Lolth is the High Priestess of Vandria, Dunin Kernong. She is the de facto leader of the Vandria's underground. She accepts the role and assumes the role. However, she feels that her commanders have more power than she does, and she's very open to listening to her advisors and communicates with Vandria as to what Vandria wants and to represent Vandria. Now, there's some sub-races in my world that don't exactly exist in standard D&D. First off are the Oromar. The Oromar are half-orc, half-elf. So they have the strength of an orc, but with elven intelligence. They're tall and muscular, but with angular features. Then there's the Firamar. The Firamar are half-drow, half-elf. You choosing such a class would, or a race would make it so you would choose either the natural spells of the drow or the elf, whichever. They're typically drow in appearance, but sometimes with elven hair, so you might get what looks like a gray-skinned drow with a full head of red hair, or even golden blonde hair. All half-blooded elves are looked down on by most members of both societies, and have trouble finding their way in the world, and either hide or accept their troubled fate and just live with it, or stand up and be deserving of their respect. If anybody has any questions, comment or message me directly, or you can do it in mass chat. My table chat. And just let me know how you think the elves are. Give me your input. And if you have any questions, just like I said, ask me. All right, that's the end of this. Next time, we'll talk about dwarves. Have a good one, guys.